Hi everyone, and welcome to yet another video on my Canon Tamron 90mm f2.8 macro lens. I have done a couple of shots with it and I thought I'd share them with you. I have give them a little edit. We'll go through them and look at them, and then at the end we may fly back through and have a look at a couple straight out of the camera. I will tell you now that I'm absolutely outstanding. I think it's a stunning lens. As it's a macro lens, you've got to be very, very careful with your focus. But the VC works fantastic. The lens focus is great. A little, well, I don't know if it's a negative because I've never been a macro man myself. Well, it is a negative, should I say. But maybe people will already know this. But I didn't realise that you can't get 2.8 when you're close to your subject. And I mean, it is actually pretty damn bad. You cannot get 2.8. You get 2.8 at about 6 meters away. So for macro photography, it's not an f2.8 lens. I did ring the shop and they tried it on a Sigma at Jessop's and he said it was pretty much the same. So I'm sure it's something that macro lenses do. But I mean, what's the point of being f2.8 at 6 meters away? That's not macro, is it? You want to be 6 inch away, 10 inch away, 12 inch. But I mean, it does go to like 3.32, which is good enough. But that was something I didn't know about. And if you haven't had a macro lens before, I'd just let you know up front, because you'd be gobsmacked when you're thinking, why can't I get 2.8? Do you know what I mean? And you've got to like point your lens down garden and then your 2.8 appears. But apart from that, it's super stunningly sharp. The D810, what I liked about the D810, by the way, is when I put it on my camera and I was using AV, it wouldn't give me a shutter speed when I was in dark situations, not in bright situations. Obviously, you can see we've got 1.250 here. But what the camera did, it detected that I had an 100mm on, or 90mm, and it wouldn't give me a shutter speed under 1/100 of a second. I had it in auto ISO just to see what would happen. And it would just up in the ISO for me to keep me shutter speed at 1/100 of a second. It's quite good really, because it compensates for handheld wobble. It reads the lens and does it for you. You'd have to go into manual if you wanted to override it, because to be fair, it did have VC on and you could have shot it slightly slower than that. But just for this test, I left it do what it wanted to do. So we'll just go through these. We'll just fly through a couple of these. I'm not going to zoom in and pixel peep. Oh, well, we are there, but I'm not going to pixel peep. But as you can see, the focus here is on this ribbon. I mean, it isn't hard to see where I focused. Then we focused on the iron. I'll tell you what I have noticed with the D810 images, that, I mean, I will do a before and after on this one, look. And we'll go here. Before, after. Before, after. Really, really nice contrast that you get from a full frame. I mean, if you look here, we've got the blacks right down, we've got the contrast right up. Under the turn curve, I've got strong contrast. I've always wondered why Jared Poland always uses he really whacks them contrast sliders up, and maybe it's just because he's full frame and always used a Nikon, and Nikon seems to take really moving those contrast sliders up, and it still looks, I think that still looks really, really nice. If that was a APC size sensor with that much contrast on it, it'd be right bright and it'd just look, it just wouldn't look right. But anyway, we'll just keep going. Focus right on the B here and see the nice wafer thin depth of field. Focused on the flash. And I shouldn't really have to tell you where I focused. And we focused here for that. I have put a little bit of sharpening on them, but I will show you out of the camera if you like a couple, or we'll do it on another movie. But it is tack sharp anyway. But what I will say is, with an Nikon D810, especially with the files being 36 megapixels, if you go to that, let me just go to the sharpening and just show you something. Can you see it? Oh, there's no sharpening on that one. I tell a lie. So there you go. So let's have a look at that one. And you can see how, and you can see the wafer thin depth of field on the wall here. It's really, really thin. You find out that when you sharpen the images, you have to put quite a bit more sharpening on than you normally would, because obviously it's a big raw file, and that'll be another reason why you can move the contrast sliders up so much, because everything will need doing more aggressive because it's a bigger file. if you understand what I'm saying there. If you had a 4 megapixel RAW file, you might only have to put 20% sharpening on and it'll look sharp. But if you have a 50 megapixel, you might have to put 120% to get the same result because of the megapixels of the shot. I mean, look at the contrast. I mean, out of the camera, let's take a look. See, all I've really done on these images is move the vibrance up a bit and add some contrast onto them. That's about it. And pull highlights down a bit, look. That's it. A quick minute edit, a 10-second to 20-second edit. And it really, really is. Absolutely. I mean, you'll see some of these ISO. See, here's one of them, look. 1/100 of a second. That was, the camera wouldn't go. What it did is it put me at ISO 3200 to give me that shutter speed. I could have probably shot that at 50th of a second in manual at 1600, but as you can see, if I just go full screen, sorry, that's not full screen, I'll press F. You'll see that at 3200 on a full frame, you don't even have to, it's no problem. If it were a portrait, I probably wouldn't let that lie. I'd adjust my settings. I mean, look at this. I mean, absolutely. But that's just my window in my bedroom. That's my garden at the back. It's absolutely killer. Killer lens. Again, look, shooting into the dark. It adjusted my ISO to 6400 to give me that 1/100 of a second. Now, these are outside. Now, what you're going to see now is these are outside. The others was inside and there was handheld. These are now tripoded, some of these, and I put it into crop mode as well, into DX mode. So if you see, you'll look at, that's the same shot, same settings, apart from I put the camera in DX mode, and you'll see, if you look at you can see the depth of field more on the DX shot. Can you see here, look at the wafer thin depth of field on the bag? I focused on the L, and there's really no quality loss, but to be fair, like somebody said, if you didn't want to piss around with your camera, you could just leave it in FX, that's crop mode, that's full frame, and you could just crop it on the computer. But I just wanted to show you again, for some people who might want to shoot, just if you're at a football game or you're somewhere, you can just leave it in DX mode and you can see it's lossless. I mean, look, and I do it a few times here. I mean, look at the sharpness of this lens. I have added a little bit of sharpening on, but it's still, I mean, look, absolutely tack sharp. F3.5, this is in manual now, must be, because I'm outside, and it's 60th of a second, ISO 100, and it's the same shot, just in DX mode. I'll go before and after, I'll just press full screen. So DX mode, cropped, the camera, the DX mode, FX, DX. And you can see, I mean, scrutinize around that image, it hasn't lost any quality, but I suppose it's just like a little crop. You could crop that little bit, like somebody said, so it's up to you. Again, DX, I focused here on the bolt. It looks to slightly back focus there, a little bit, because I focused in this. Oh no, it hasn't, in the holes, right? It's there, and then you've got your FX. You can see the crazy amount of detail. Focused on the TIK, around the TIK, and then you've got the FX and DX mode. Again, FX, you can see, look at that lovely. You see how the camera, I was probably really close. This, by the way, I was in aperture priority and I had it as wide open, but because I was so close to this shot, it went to f4.5. And then you've got your FX and DX, FX and DX. I won't go on about that, we'll fly past that now. FX and DX. I'll tell you what, I love the images that come out of this D810. They're just so punchy, absolutely. They're not punchy out of the camera, by the way, look. Just a little bit of contrast and wow, it comes to life. Again, focused on this peg here. It was moving, but you can see the wafer thin. Look at this slight bit of depth of field here and at the back here. Absolutely stunning. F3.8. I'll just jump past some of these. Again, F4. Look at this along this, I can't remember what that was. I think it was a piece of wood laying on the floor. Look at the wafer thin depth of field. Really, really good. Now, these were, I think these are handheld now. I did some handheld. They are, all these now are handheld. There you go, FX, DX. Focused here on the T, FX. FX. I did a couple because I were handheld. Even though you're at 1/160th of a second, when you're that close up to it, I could feel myself wobbling really bad. Really, you should use a tripod when you're that close up, but I've pulled it off handheld. These are all handheld, every one of them handheld. Look at the detail, the crazy amount of detail in this padlock. Again, there's your DX mode. So DXFX. Let's fly past them. This is where now I thought, now this is in the centre of the frame, guys. It's because I was using the centre focus point. I didn't want to recompose, because you don't want to recompose when you're doing a sharpness test, because recomposing that bit could slightly change the distance between you and what you focused on and give you a false sense of security. So I focused right here on this thing here and then just stayed in that position. That's why it's right in centre. But you see my settings F4. If you go to the edges now, and then you'll see the next one is F8, and I've left it like this because you can just see the edges really sharpen up. Sorry about the loading, it's because the 75 megabytes in size. And what I recommend you do is, I'll just show you, if you get a D810, if you go to the library, when you've done a bit, when you bring them in, you want to build one-on-one previews. And if they're already in Lightroom, select them all by going to Command A, and then go to Photos, Preview, and build one-on-one previews. Basically what that does is then when you zoom in, it doesn't really hesitate. If you don't build them one-on-one previews, when you zoom in, you might be waiting, I mean, I only wait 3 seconds or something because it's a really quick computer, but if you're on an older computer, you could be waiting 10 seconds for it to generate a preview. If you build, and you find out when you're scrolling, you see how I get the little loading very briefly? See it? But if you don't build one-on-one previews, it takes ages, does that loading. So be careful. So there's an F8. F8, you can even see the brush in the background. Watch that brush. You can really see it. But the centre sharpness, that's F4. Just let it build in now. I don't really think there's a great deal of difference in centre. The centre's brilliant. Handheld now. Focused again on the LO. Handheld. These are just handheld in FX mode, I think. These are handheld. I thought I'd just hold some so we can see. I mean, look at that, 1/100th of a second at ISO 1400 at f8. I did control the aperture here, that's why the ISO's right up. But I mean, look at the crazy amount of detail, and that's at 1/100th of a second. That seems a little bit softer. Oh no, it doesn't. It would just build in the preview. Sorry, look, it's super duper. Oh, F16, look. F16 ISO 5600. Bit of a crazy ISO in good light, but you can see the exposure's perfect. Let me just go to full screen. That's nearly 6400 ISO, and you can see, because I've got a really good exposure, I could have told you that were probably 200 and you wouldn't know unless you zoomed into 100%. But let's zoom in. It doesn't even look bad there. Look at 60. Look, oh, there's a little bit there, look. But if you did a bit of noise removal, but you wouldn't have to. You could print that out 20 by 30, no worries. This is DX mode now. DX mode, F8 in centre. Look at how super duper sharp it is. Then we went F4, and then we're back to the beginning. That's good. Right, there you go. That's the first look at the 90mm Tamron VC macro lens. I think it's absolutely stunning. As the images that come off the D810 are absolutely stunning. I highly recommend it. I'm going to do some more shots. I'm going to try and get a subject so we can use an eyeball. But I will tell you now that even with VC on it, when you're really up close at about 10 inches, 6 inches, 8 inches, 12 inches, it's really hard to handle. You think, well, I've got VC, I can do it even at 1/100th of a second, but it's still, at that magnification, it's wobbly. Do you know what I mean? So you have to be careful. And the negative on the 2.8, but I think all macro lenses do pretty much the same thing from what I've heard. Although I wouldn't have thought 6 meters away to get f2.8. I think that's a bit of a fucking piss take, to be honest. I mean, you know, I wouldn't mind at 6 inches you get f4 and at 12 you can have your 2.8, but that doesn't happen. It's 6 meters. I mean, I thought it basically, if there was a bride getting ready in a living room and you was at the back of the living room, you won't get f2.8 unless it were a massive, massive living room. You'd be at f3.2, which, to be fair, on this camera, it's irrelevant anyway. But I would have thought that they'd give us a closer 2.8 than bloody 6 metres, 7 metres. Honestly, it really is a far distance. But the lens is absolutely breathtakingly stunning. Thanks for watching. Please comment and subscribe.